Tonight on Joy News Prime, claims by former Special Prosecutor Martin Ameri, the President Takoradi threatened the NDC MPs caught in double life salary scandal to secure approval of his ministers has caused quite an uproar among the MPs.
Was there a salary for there to even be a double salary? As at the time that allegation was made, there was no salary.
We'll tell you what the Special Prosecutor has been saying in his latest epistle. Former Power Minister Dr. Kwabena Donkor cites failure of government to establish allegations of wrongdoing in Ameri deal as vindication the agreement was above board.
I've followed up, and to the best of my knowledge, they didn't find anything incriminating. There was absolutely no criminality. All the decisions were above board.
We bring you a total recall on the Ameri deal. President Takoradi has reiterated an earlier directive to his ministers to respect a ban on the abuse of sirens. We ask what difference it will make. Residents of Eshem, a suburb of Sekondi Takoradi, have blocked the road in their community in a demonstration of the poor nature of roads.
Why can we be controlled with such narrow promises? In fact, from about 5 years coming, this is the same promises we've been hearing. We even thought he is coming to tell us that Friday machines are coming to grade the road and start serious work.
Well, ending the road is still blocked. We'll get the latest from our correspondent. In business, checking cheating fuel stations, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers and Ghana Standards Authority soon roll out added value logo at various petroleum stations to regularly monitor fuel sold by OMCs.
The consumer body, together with the Ghana Standards Authority, will be rolling out an added value logo that says that these outlets have been double verified. What they are delivering to you is nothing but exactly what they promised.
My name is Telecom. Joy News Prime is coming to you live from our final for studios at Telecom here in Accra on your digital terrestrial TV, because we're free to air, and also on DSTV channel 421 and Go TV channel 144. This is a home of independent, fearless, credible and impactful journalism. Stay tuned in. Residents of Eshem, a suburb in the Sekondi Takoradi metropolis of the Western region, have embarked on a demonstration to register their anger over the poor nature of roads in the area. The angry residents blocked the main road from Impitsin Junction to Eshem amidst the burning of car tires in the middle of the road. According to them, the heavy trucks conveying sand from a company in the area have contributed to the road developing huge potholes. There's more in the following report.
The angry residents, who were clad in red bands and chanting war songs, blocked the main road from Impinsin Junction to Eshem amidst the burning of car tires in the middle of the road. They said heavy trucks conveying sand from a company in the area have contributed to the road developing huge potholes. Trucks could be seen stranded in the middle of the road, with other road users finding it difficult to get to their destination. Here's Isaac Akumati Nyamiche, a stranded worker in one of the communities.
In fact, we've not heard anything. Why can we be controlled with such narrow promises? In fact, from about 5 years coming, this is the same promises we've been hearing. We even thought he is coming to tell us that Friday machines are coming to grade the road and start serious work. The late Honorable KKSM last 2 years gave us the same promise. I don't know whether it's a written note that they read before coming here. We can't accept these promises. No, we are not convinced at all.
But the charged residents say they will keep the road blocked until they see contractors on the site ready to commence work. The protesters are from 6 communities along the Nchamban Junction to Mantu Road in the Sekondi Takoradi area. In Sekondi Takoradi, they say their plea over the years to the city authorities for the road to be fixed have been ignored for many years. In Athalia Kwanzas reports for Joy News.
And Western Region correspondent Ina Thalia Kwanzaa joins me right now from the area. Ina, what's the very latest on this demonstration by the residents?
Yes, Israel. So the demonstration started yesterday at 11 p.m. And then from the residents, they are going to continue till they see that there is a machine on the road, because they are tired of empty promises. They are tired of whenever this is the third of demonstration in 2 years. Whenever there is a demonstration, city authorities come to them and then give them promises. One of them cited the instance where the late MC for the Takoradi Metro, Anthony Kekesa, had promised them that they should just give them about 2 weeks and then they would see road constructors on the road. They had waited, and it's 2 years now. Today, for instance, the MC, Abdul Mumin, was also there. He spoke to them. And Israel, that is a free zone area. So according to the MC, he had gone to see the companies in there and then spoken to them that they should take the communities along that stretch and then try and develop it. But the residents, especially the youth, are still not convinced. They feel that they would not rest, they will not stop this demonstration until they see that there is a road contractor on the road. They see machines, they see that there is some work ongoing.
Now, I know the police intervened earlier. Have they been able to move the blockade?
No, Israel. The police intervened, and these residents would not stop anything for them. They said over the years they have listened to authorities, they've listened to the powers that be, but this time around they are bent on getting things done the right way.
Are you saying that the residents are still there on the scene, on the road?
Israel, the last time I checked, around 5 p.m., these residents were still on the road.
Right, thank you very much, Ina Thalia Kwansan, with that update there. And we'll keep following that story. But elsewhere, the tanker explosion that killed 3 at Unyinanofo in the Ashanti region has been attributed to a wrongly parked van. Preliminary investigations by the police at Mankranso suggest the positioning of the van obstructed the tanker as he negotiated the bend and ended up crashing into it. The ensuing explosion reduced at least 10 houses to ashes. Here's a report filed earlier by Nanea Jima looking at the devastation of the explosion.
Kwame Asari, who was drying his cocoa at the time of the incident, was nearly killed by the tanker. According to him, the diesel tanker lost balance while speeding and drove into a parked Ford Transit van before it caught fire. The tanker driver lost control and drove into the van. The tanker skidded into the village. The fire started immediately. Seth Edu, who is recovering from a stroke, is the father of the toddler who was killed in the incident. He was outside his home as the toddler slept at the time of the incident. But for his condition, he could have saved his son.
The
whole of the left part of my body is numb. I can't carry the child. It was between saving myself and perishing with him. Later, someone offered to carry me on his back to take me to safety. The fire service intervened to control the spread of the inferno. ADO1, Wikana Badomi, led the fire team.
So quickly what we did was to try to check the spread, protect the other building, preventing the fire from, affecting the other structures that were, nearby. So that was the strategy we used. So when we were able to successfully contain or control the spread, then we came back to the container, to the tanker, and then put out the fire.
At the time of the incident, many were out on their farms. Children who were home ran into bushes and other communities for safety. At the time of filing this report, 3 children remained missing. Residents are disturbed. They went separate ways, so we have to move in all directions to find them. Meanwhile, the National Disaster Management Organization has been to the scene assessing the damage. Together with the District Assembly, some arrangements were made for the affected persons to pass the night. Eric Nanajiman Prempe is Director General of NADMO.
We don't have hostels and hotels here. So we're looking at classrooms and the church buildings. The assembly, the DC is here. He's going back to the district capital to arrange for some mosquito nets and some blankets for them. I have called NADMO headquarters. They are also arranging to get some mattresses and other things. By tomorrow morning, they will also be here. We are doing the little we can to help the people who are homeless. In fact, apart from the Cheese Palace and few places, almost everybody has been rendered homeless now.
For Joy News, Nana Ojima reporting.
NADMO has meanwhile presented some relief items to affected persons. The items include food, mattresses, blankets, and 20 packets of roofing sheets. Eric Nana Ajimang Prempe is NADMO Director General.
We were here with you, and after everything, we promised the people that as early as possible, we need to come in to support them with some form of relief. Today, we are here to present all these items to them, from roofing sheet to food items and non-food items. So we've presented it to the chiefs and people on behalf of the president and the government of Ghana, as well as my organization, NADMO. So that's all what we came here to do the presentation to them. Already there's a contractor on the road to repair the road. So what I'm going to do is to write officially to the Minister for Roads so that we take it up and see how possible we can add more road signs and other things so that we don't experience such occurrences again.
Now, checks reveal 3 children who were missing at the time of the accident have since been found. Also, all but one of the injured have been discharged from the hospital. Now, he has been out of office for a few months, but former Special Prosecutor Martin Amidu has not ceased stirring controversy. The citizen vigilante in his latest epistle has left many serving and former members of Parliament outraged over claims that they escaped criminal prosecution for taking salaries they did not deserve only because of a deal to approve the president's ministerial nominees. Martin Amidu had also alleged that the main opposition party, the NDC, had done a deal to have all its affiliated road contractors paid. In exchange, the party got its MPs to simply rubber stamp the president's nominees. We'll hear from them shortly. But first, let's hear some of the key allegations by Martin Amidu. And first of all, former Attorney General Miss Gloria Kufu never referred the double salary case to him for further investigation or prosecution. He had nothing to do with it. That's the first thing he said. Now, second, that the credible information that he received on the case is and was that the then Attorney General and the Director of Public Prosecutions had both perused the case docket and had come to the conclusion that charges be filed against some of the suspects for prosecution. The Attorney General was instructed not to do so by the President, who unconstitutionally usurped the investigatory and prosecutorial constitutional authority of the Attorney General on grounds of political expediency of having the suspects agreeable to play ball in Parliament for the government. Third, that the statement attributed to the Office of the Attorney General about recently resuming working on establishing a prima facie case against the ex-appointees and then swing into action cannot also be reflecting any factual truth because of negotiations led by one of the former Ministers of Finance of the NDC on behalf of this government, which resulted in the NDC party outside Parliament instructing the NDC in Parliament to approve all the ministerial nominees of the government, including the minister who was yet to supply further and better particulars to the Appointments Committee for consideration before his approval or disapproval by the committee and Parliament. Now, fourth, this compromising agreement led to some NDC contractors being paid for the first time for work done prior to January 7, 2017, before the ministerial approvals were made as a good show of faith to the NDC. Now, how did he come by this information? I mean, former Special Prosecutor Martin Amidu, he says, my informants and agents within the executive and parliamentary NDC are asserting that the MP's double salary cases and other pending criminal cases involving some NDC members of Parliament form part of the negotiation and compromises that pave the way for the resolution of the ministerial approval and pass with the NDC in Parliament. Well, today we are hearing from some of these NDC MPs whose names came up in the double salary saga. ABA Fuseni, the MP for Zanerugu in the northern region, is challenging Mr. Amidu to back his allegations with evidence, insisting nothing of that sort happened.
Mr. Martin Amidu, as special prosecutor, was privy to this matter. I'm sure you are aware of the powers that the special prosecutor. Where is the evidence? Who negotiated on the LDC side and who negotiated on the LDC?
No, you should tell us, sir.
There was no such thing. So there was the proof of an allegation lies in the person against whom it is made, or is the one who alleges who must move. Is there any burden of proof on anybody in the NDC about this matter? They are making allegations, and I'm telling you that no such thing existed. No such negotiation took place for anybody to say that this is what the agreement was. And let me ask you, number one, was there a salary for there to even be a double salary? As at the time that allegation was made, there was no salary. No appointee of President Mahama, a member of Parliament, was paid a salary. Members who are part of the Article 171 office holders were just paid on account. Nobody had a salary. So nobody was paid a salary for anybody to even talk about double salary being paid. So it's a red herring. Nobody was paid a salary.
As a minister or as an MP?
Yes, so it was like people were paid allowances in lieu of the payment of a salary to them. So there was no salary.
So if
so how could anybody talk about payment of a salary? There was no salary. So ab initio is false. Because like I told you, no salary had been determined. The president had, and I'm sure you are cognizant of Article 71, which says that the president will come to office, shall set up a committee which shall advise him on emoluments to members of Parliament. And Parliament shall also determine that for appointees of the president. It's clear. No such thing was done until the end of the tenure. So if there was no salary, where was double salary coming from? It's a red herring. Okay?
So you are challenging Martin Amidu to
I
show
am telling you that it was
allegation.
a red herring. And number two, well, if Mr. Martin Amidu, as special prosecutor, was privy to this matter, I'm sure you are aware of the powers that the special prosecutor is clothed with. That where there are acts of corruption and others, he can go into those investigations without.
Yeah, but he said he did that. I mean, there was clear that he should be prosecuted.
Yeah, so he should have gone.
But the president intervened. The president intervened, and that's why you're not prosecuted.
The president intervened with him. Is that what he's saying? He didn't say
that. The president directed the attorney general not to prosecute.
No, he's saying that no, he as special prosecutor
is
clothed with powers to prosecute without direction from the attorney general. He didn't need the president's authority to go and prosecute. He did it on his own. If he was convinced that there was any evidence of that one, he could have gone ahead and prosecuted. Why didn't he do that? Does the attorney office of special prosecutor on those occasions work under the direction of the president or the attorney general? He could have done that. Why didn't he do that? So look, my brother, I've said it clearly that if you can't carry your head load, you don't blame your head part. Okay, so this banter between he and the attorney general is a demonstrable act of incompetence. They can share it among themselves.
But you agree that you received double salary at the time?
There was no, I just indicated to you that there was no salary.
But there was an allowance.
Which one? So now you graduate from double salary to double allowance. Is that what is coming? We are waiting for that terminology.
Well, in other news, the Office of the President says the directive on the abuse of sirens by ministers of state and other government officials is still in place. Regulation 74.3 of LI 2180 specifies the categories of vehicles that a siren or bell may be fitted as a warning appliance. Those vehicles include government vehicle used for official purposes by head of state, a police vehicle, a motor vehicle used by the fire service, an ambulance, and a motor vehicle used by a recognized government security agency, the MTTD, as over the period had a tough time checking government appointees who use or abuse these sirens or install the sirens in their vehicles. And we're asking tonight, what difference will it make now that we're hearing from the Office of the President? And the Office of the President has issued a circular or a letter to the appointees, the ministers and other government officials, that they are to cease abusing those sirens. And it goes on to say that it kindly notes that the directive on the abuse of the use of sirens by ministers of state and other government officials is still in force. And it quotes the law. It goes to the end and says that for the avoidance of doubt, the said ban on the use of sirens covers the following government appointees. 1. Honorable ministers of ministers and deputy ministers. 2, regional ministers and deputy regional ministers. 3, metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives. 4, CEOs of government agencies and officials of the presidency unless otherwise designated. Now joining us via Zoom now is DSP Alexander Kwekwobing. He's the Director for Education, Research and Training at the Motor Traffic and Transport Department of the Ghana Police Service. Thank you very much for making time to speak with us. So we know that it has been difficult for the police to enforce this directive on the abuse of sirens. Does this letter issued by the president to his appointees make your work any easier?
All right, he's right. Thank you very much. I'm surprised so soon you've forgotten about my name. I'm so pretending to not DSP.
Sorry about that.
It's because of the Batakari.
Sorry about that.
I'm saying your own sublieutenant take care of me. Anyway, that's on the lighter side. I think it is a good call, and Israel, you are aware that when it comes to traffic law enforcement, admonishment is also part of it. That seeks to prevent, that seeks to increase sense of detection and apprehension among users. And so if the appointing authority is reminding its appointees of the need to comply with one of the basic rules of engagement on our road in the LI 2180, specifically regulation 74, reading it together with regulation 165 and 166, it is a good call, and I expect all other ministries, department and agency officials, including security agencies, to take a cue from it and also internally admonish their personnel so that all of us will refrain from the misuse and abuse. That goes a long way to making traffic law enforcement sometimes difficult and unnecessarily tasking for traffic police.
Now, it is one thing admonishing the people or the people who abuse the sirens, but it is another thing enforcing the law, and you are mandated as the police to enforce the law. Are you going to do anything different apart from just letting this admonition go?
Oh, I think that over time, you recall under war on indiscipline, we made significant arrests, and I think you have evidence to show, even the media, of government officials being arrested and all that. So I think that we only will naturally sustain it, and we hope in coming months there are even operandi in terms of detection and arresting will even move further than we have now currently physically deploying to detect, to include other current modern ICT methods, and that will even make it easier for us to detect and impose fines and all that. So we will deploy to the teeth. We will look out for drivers, in particular of such vehicles, who are not supposed to drive such vehicle occupants using such prohibited vehicles in terms of construction fitted with beacon lights and sirens. And then we will not hesitate to proceed to court on charge sheet. So we will definitely do that. But I hope that with this, these particular road users who find themselves working with the state, who listen to their departmental head or the office of the president, so that they will be seen to be complying. Because most of the times, studies have shown that when political appointees don't listen to appointed authority, it goes a long way to inconvenience the general public. The general public transfer their annoyance in terms of certain disapproval that goes against the appointing authority. So it is natural that the appointees will also be fair with the appointing authority and comply with this basic rule of engagement. It will a very large extent to it will help. It will be a behavior worthy of emulation, because others also look up to appointees to comply with basic rules of engagement. So if appointees who are supposed to set higher standards in terms of moral standards tends to violate, including, for example, locally, if you see MC, DC, and regional, among others, committing road offences, it emboldens others to do so.
All right.
So I think it's the right call, and it will go a long way to helping police to have a smooth enforcement on our roads.
I'll return to you in a bit, Superintendent Obeng, but I'd want to go to David Osafo. He's the Director of Planning and Programs at the National Road Safety Authority. Thank you very much for making time to also speak with us. I want to find out from you, what difference will this directive make, if any at all?
I think that the news has come as a very welcome one to all of us Ghanaians, particularly some of us who are line of road safety movement and traffic law enforcement. Over the past number of years, we know the intensity with which we have come out advocating for traffic behavior, especially amongst road users and drivers in particular, and then narrowing down to this sort of misbehavior on the part of some motorists who have taken hands and then driving and using sirens with impunity, as if there's no law in Ghana. I think the police has had a couple of challenges dealing with this particular problem as regards arresting and prosecuting the offenders. And you know that they are handicapped. I believe Supo, in his narrations and submissions, appears to be saying that there's a challenge, especially the people involved happen to be high-profile personalities, politicians, and what have you, and ministers, parliamentarians, and so on. And it becomes very difficult to arrest people and put them behind, or in court for prosecution. But once the president has spoken, coming from the president, I believe it is very motivating for the police in particular, place a supporting strategy to deal with the issue. The convenience it brings to society in traffic. And then the risk also that it poses for road use, as well as road safety and traffic crashes and so on. In the past, we some crashes and even deaths or casualties involving this particular class of people driving through traffic and hitting pedestrians. So if you go into our statistics, that some pedestrians have been hit, and this because of the personalities, they go scot-free, they run away because you can't even get them and apprehend. So I think that it's come at the right time that we are advocating for Arrive Alive campaign together with you, and I think that is going to stop a lot of misbehaviors as regards the use of sirens and streets, especially for drivers who sometimes happen to be ordinary men, I must say, ordinary men, who are just driving through traffic to do something that has nothing to do with emergency. And there are quite a number of them.
Yeah, to buy watches, for instance.
Yes, that will use the basis from the president now to do what's right amongst all of us as road users, and also for the police to motivate them to enforce more vigorously as is provided in the LI 2180.
Now, Mr. Adonte, what would you do, or what would you advise the motorists to do if they come across these vehicles that are trying to bully them off the road?
In fact, I'm tempted to say that every Ghanaian whether you are the police or not the police, right to cause arrest. I think this is a basic principle that we all know. So when we happen to be in traffic and we find people flouting the road traffic regulations, it is by right as Ghanaians that we draw the attention of the police to this. Or in other words, if there's a way the police can link up with the general public to then, when these things happen. I am not advocating for a case where we should prevent them, because when you do that, it becomes confrontation. I think we should still give the police the mandate to do the arrest and then the prosecutions when it comes to this kind of thing. So I will still ask that we as citizens, as road users, we should first of all discipline ourselves. We should be honest and responsible and comply with these regulations that the president himself has come to emphasize. If we do that, it makes the work very easier. Right. But I know that in the coming weeks, the police is going to step up their enforcement activities and revive what we call the war against indiscipline. And they will have to take this one on very strongly.
All right.
We will support them from the National Road Safety Authority point of view. And I think that much as we will educate the people and advise them to stay away from this kind of practices, it is our hope and expectation that in the coming day, we see a change, a very big change in our traffic situation when it comes to the use of siren. It's a big opportunity for us to change. If we don't, then police, Supo and your men, we encourage you and we support you and we give you all the necessary support to go all out and do the arrest. And please don't, whichever and whoever happens to be within the bracket, I think the law will not have to discriminate. And do it very well. All
right. Thank you very much, David Osafo Adonting of the National Road Safety Authority. Now, coming to you, Superintendent Alex Obeng, what would you encourage or what would you advise motorists to do when they come across such vehicles?
I think, as Ashanti said, we encourage the general public to support us in one aspect of our strategy, name and shame, in collaboration with the media. If you see people you suspect to be using such a vehicle in such a manner, with siren blaring and sometimes with beacon lights, and you suspect that they are abusing and misusing it, and that they are not supposed to fit them on their vehicle. All these vehicles have registration numbers. Just a telephone your telephone, you have snapping the picture of sections where the number plates are, putting it on the social media, forwarding it to any media house or to police, will go a very long way to help us trace the owner, and the owner will definitely be forthcoming. As I said, it is also important that the media joins us, so that we also encourage all other ministry, department, and agencies to also follow suit, to internally warn those who are driving government vehicles and other either private and all that, to ensure that they use the vehicle like any other vehicle. Otherwise, as we are stepping up our enforcement efforts and look out, we will be robust and detect and arrest and, like I said, charge those who are driving such vehicles and those who unlawfully equipped their vehicles with unauthorized sirens, horns, bells, and beacon lights, so that they will be forthcoming at the courts. We will do it.
All right.
And we pray that in this light you continue to support us in whichever way under Arrive Alive and War on Indiscipline. Because in much of these, we need the media to help us send this deterrent information to the general public to accept our traffic enforcement methods on these.
Thank you very much. Superintendent Alex Obeng is the Director for Education, Research and Training at the Police Motor Traffic and Transport Department. You're watching Joy News Prime. We're taking a break. But still ahead in the bulletin, former Power Minister Dr. Kwabena Donkor cites failure of government to establish allegations of wrongdoing in Ameri deal as vindication. The agreement was above board.
I've followed up, and to the best of my knowledge, they didn't find anything incriminating. There was absolutely no criminality. All the decisions were above board.
Your total recall on the deal. And in business, checking cheating fuel stations. Chamber of Petroleum Consumers and Ghana Standards Authority to soon roll out added value logo at various petroleum stations to regularly monitor fuel sold by OMC.
The consumer body, together with the Ghana Standards Authority, will be rolling out an added value logo that says that these outlets have been double verified. What they are delivering to you is nothing but exactly what they promised.
Stay tuned in. Business comes up shortly.
And welcome to business. The Chamber of Petroleum Consumers and the Ghana Standards Authority will soon roll out an added value logo at various petroleum stations, which will differentiate the oil marketing companies selling actual liters of fuel from those undercutting consumers. There is more in this report.
Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, Duncan Amoah, says the introduction of the logo will weed out recalcitrant pump stations selling fuel below the Ghana Standard Authority specified standards. Mr. Amoah disclosed when the Ghana Oil Company donated some equipment to the Ghana Standard Authority.
We've worked extra harder in designing something we call the trusted trader. And it is our belief that very soon the consumer body, together with the Ghana Standards Authority, will be rolling out an added value logo that says that these outlets have been double verified. What they are delivering to you is nothing but exactly what they promised.
Chief Executive of GOIL, Kwame Osei-Prempeh, says his company will absorb the cost despite the adjustments made in the second pricing window adjustments. He emphasized GOIL's commitment to serving the public in sincerity.
The second window is gone. We ought to have, I believe, we will heard COPEC and others saying that we are going to go up by about 8%. We decided to absorb it. We decided not to go up. GOIL, one of our major things is we stabilize prices. All the others look at us. But because we are truly Ghanaian, and we think of Ghanaians, most of you decide that we won't go out. Our profits have come down, but we believe that for your sake, we decided, no, we won't go up. We're praying that going out of the winter, prices on the world market will come down. The city has stabilized for the past 5 months, so that if prices go down on the world market, we assure Ghanaians that prices will come down accordingly.
Director General of the Ghana Standards Authority, Professor Alex Dodu, indicated that his outfit will increase the number of times they visit the fuel stations from twice a year to 4 times a year to verify if the stations go according to the standards set.
I mean, the VC gauges are quite expensive. I must say, the donation we have today is close to £70,000. So if you multiply by 8, you are looking at over 500,000 cedis. I know that in 1993, GSA bought about 4 more. These are equipment you need to assure yourself that you are checking the volumes delivered by oil marketing companies and that they are accurate. As we speak, as of today, we have only 4 teams doing the work nationwide, purely because of the lack of equipment. Now, with the more than doubling of our capacity by this donation from GOIL, we can create 8 teams, which means that we'll work faster, we'll check better. Thankfully, starting this year, we have doubled the number of times we verify the volumes. We used to do it every 6 months. Now we are doing it every 3 months. Our hope is that once Parliament also gives us the stronger penalties, we can apply them to ensure that consumers will feel comfortable that they are getting value for money and that when they go to the pump, what they pay is what they get.
Now, banks fear the rising cost of services could impact on the post-COVID-19 economic recovery. Speaking to Joy Business at the Maiden Money Summit in Accra, the Chief Executive of FBN Bank, Victor Ashanti, said the situation can be controlled if necessary measures are put in place. Here's a report.
Money Summit is a day's roundtable platform that seeks to bring together players in the financial space to dialogue on issues pertaining to the sector. The objective is to bring innovation and create policy alternatives to help shape the country's agenda for post-COVID-19 economic growth. After addressing the first panel session, Chief Executive of FBN Ghana, Victor Ashanti, called on the Bank of Ghana to fast-track processes of appointing some key directors in the sector. He feared that the delay in approving appointments could affect the recovery process for the financial sector and thereby the economy as a whole.
Now the problem we have with the fit and proper test is the fact that it means that you can't make any senior appointment, any board appointment without a thorough overview from Central Bank, and they have their own processes, which is fine. Some of the processes include integrity tests and even searching on everything, including what you've done, even police, criminal records, everything, which is fine. The issue that has come to the fore is the amount of time it takes for that to happen. So, for example, if my treasurer resigns today, I have 1 month notice. And indeed, for a treasurer to resign, you probably don't keep him for a month. You have to take him out in a week or two because you can't let somebody who's going to competition stay in your treasury room. So there's an imperative for me to quickly replace such a person. So when I identify somebody probably in a month, I expect that Central Bank will also move in a month or two to get closeness. But sometimes you are taking 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 6. And there's a reverse risk there because if you don't have a competent person manning your treasury, what you have is that you probably have genius manning it. And the very risk that you want to prevent from making sure you are getting the right person may manifest itself in the fact that you may not have the most qualified people running it, which is also a risk to you. So all we are saying is that in some instances, we need the regulator to move faster.
And that's how we end business. Sports is up next.
It's been more than 4 years since allegations of fraud and underhand dealings were made in the Ameri power agreement. The 250 megawatt power plant was procured in 2016 to augment Ghana's electricity generation at the height of the energy crisis under the John Mahama administration. Amid allegations that it was overpriced by $150 million, the Kufuor administration has pledged to investigate it. Though the agreement was eventually reviewed, government is yet to say what crimes were committed and those who committed them. There's more in the following report for Total Recall. The Ameri Power Agreement was one of those deals the New Patriotic Party, then in opposition, said was tainted with corruption. The agreement was structured such that Ameri would be paid for the plant from the tariffs paid by consumers of the electricity it generates over a period of 5 years. Dr. Baumia, who was then running mate to candidate Kufuor, argued why the contract at $510 million was overpriced.
The issue of the Ameri power deal is one episode of issues bordering on corruption and the failure to ensure value for money for the people of Ghana. In this deal, Ghana is basically purchasing 10 power gas plants for $510 million, even though the same plants can be acquired from GE, from the market, for $220 million.
On assumption of power in 2017, President Kufuor, in his first State of the Nation address, announced a review of all power purchase agreements, including the Ameri deal.
Government is conducting a review of all the power agreements entered into by the previous government in order to prioritize, renegotiate, defer or cancel outright if necessary in the national interest.
A committee chaired by Philip Addison, which looked at the deal and traveled to the United Arab Emirates, concluded in 2017 that it should be renegotiated because it was overpriced by about $150 million. The police in July of 2017 visited the homes of some officials believed to have knowledge of the Ameri agreement in search of documents relating to the deal.
I found about 6 people with a warrant stating that they were searching for laptops and phone because I was suspected of causing financial loss to the nation with regards to the Ameri project, and I was completely taken aback because as a technocrat that I've served this country, I have in my opinion distinguished since President Kufuor's era. I thought I didn't deserve this because I only implement. I don't make decisions. I don't decide who goes where. The equipment is acquired and I install, and I do it day and night, putting myself at risk to get it done.
The Director of Public Affairs of the Ghana Police Service at the time, David Eklu, explained the CID officers had visited on a court order to look for evidence to find out if someone was culpable.
What we did was to execute a warrant or a court order to search his premises to look for evidence in relation to an issue that the police wants to find out whether somebody is culpable or not.
The renegotiated Ameri deal by then Energy Minister Boakye Jakun extended the duration of the agreement to 15 years from 5 and reduced the cost of power from 14.6 cents to 11.7 cents per kilowatt hour. This was, however, condemned by many as worse than the original agreement and was eventually scrapped and the minister relieved of his post. Even though no reason was given for the minister's dismissal, many linked it to the revision of the Ameri deal. It's been 5 years since Ghana procured the Ameri plant, which also means that it is time for ownership to revert to the country. Government has already indicated the plant will be relocated to Kumasi to resolve the power supply challenges being experienced in that part of the country.
The Ministry of Energy has taken a decision. As we analyzed, we saw that it is best if we could get a generator around Kumasi. So the ministry has taken a decision that the Ameri power plant should be moved to Kumasi. So efforts are being put in place to ensure that gas infrastructure is sent to Kumasi to feed the Ameri power plant once that movement is done. When this is completed, our system will become even more resilient.
Joy News is learning government has also initiated plans to take over ownership of the plant. As far as the investigations into criminality by the police CID are concerned, no prosecutions of the former ministers and officials whose homes were searched have been initiated. It is, however, not clear if government would ever make public the report on the investigations. Well, former Power Minister Dr. Kwabena Donko says government's failure to prove allegations of wrongdoing in the procurement of the Ameri power plant affirms his position that the deal was above board. The minister, under whose watch the emergency power plants were acquired in 2016 for $510 million, was the subject of investigations by the police CID, along with 2 others over claims the generators were overpriced. In an interview with the former Power Minister, I asked him if he was ever indicted by the police CID after its investigations in 2017.
Officially, no. I've followed up, and to the best of my knowledge, they didn't find anything incriminating. There was absolutely no criminality. All the decisions were above board.
But do you think you would have done things better if you had been given the chance to redo this?
Well, the only other thing I want to do differently is that there should have been a little bit more of education as to what build, own, operate, and transfer really entails. Because that was the first time we were going outside the normal route of purely independent IPP, and then we just pay for the energy. But in Ameri, we are not just going to pay for energy, but we are also going to own the plant. And therefore, it's slightly bit more complicated than the regular IPP.
Wouldn't it have been better if we went to buy the generators rather than go through all these third parties?
Well, if you have the money, it will always be better to go and buy. If you have the money to buy. Did we have the resources at the time? No. And if you don't have the resources, rather than just contracting the service, if there is an arrangement by which you pay a little more, but get to own the facility, get to own the plant, I believe owning the plant is always a better deal. Fortunately, it is a modular plant, and that gives it some flexibility, and I believe we are about to exercise that flexibility.
So as it is now, the plant is going to be relocated to Kumasi. What do you make of that idea?
Well, it just reaffirms what we had always known from the beginning, that if the plant is yours and the plant is modular, you can move it to meet national demand when such peculiar demand stands up. Presently, there's the need to inject generation into the Kumasi area in order to stabilize the grid. And Ameri has come in very useful. And I fully support moving some of the units to Kumasi. My only addition is that 3 of the units, there are 10 units, generating 25 megawatts each. 3 of the units can be used in Abuaze in the T3 plant. Remember the plant President Kufuor contracted. The plant has never worked because the units got burnt out. There was a major problem with the unit, so it's never worked. But a consultant report I have seen indicates that 3 of the units will perfectly fit into the plant. And because that plant has a heat recovery unit, therefore the heat recovery unit will generate some extra power. If you add that extra power to what the 3 will generate, you end up generating more power using less fuel and therefore ending up being cheaper per megawatt.
There are others too who are suggesting that we leave the Ameri plant, the units, in the Abuaze enclave because they would be needed for the combined cycle rather than sending them all the way to Kumasi. And they also say that the problem with Kumasi is not so much about the generation, but it's about the integrity of the transmission lines from the south going towards Kumasi. And if that is fixed, we really don't need to have the Ameri plant being moved there because it's being moved at a cost.
If we was generating, then the system in Kumasi and the northern part will be stabilized. In the absence of that, and we cannot guarantee continuous availability of good water in the dam. And so in the interim, and that is one of the strengths of the Ameri plant, in that it is modular. In the interim, for the next 2-3 years, we can take the plant to Kumasi, stabilize the northern part, build up the reservoir in Bui over time, and then if it becomes necessary, we can then move it back. The other thing is that we will also have the option of turning the units into combined cycle at a later time, even in Kumasi, if that is what we desire. All I need to say, or I want to say, is that we should not be short-termish in our projections and our calculations, and especially in our analysis. As a people, we've tend to look at power in electoral cycles, and that has not been useful. We need to go beyond the 4-year electoral cycle and look at a medium term of 5 to 8 years. And that will be a better basis for analysis.
The Speaker of Parliament has asked the Committee of Selection to look into what he says is the purported resignation of the MP for North Tong, Samuel Kujetu Ablakwa, from the vetting committee. He says the committee would soon present its report to the House for consideration. He said this is in his welcome address to the MPs.
I received a purported letter of resignation from the Member of Parliament for North Tong, Honorable Samuel Kujetu Ablakwa, just a few hours before Parliament recessed. By the rules of the House, my acceptance of his resignation would have been ultra-vires for my position and powers as a Speaker of Parliament. It was, however, procedurally intra-vires for my position as the chairman of the Committee of Selection, acting for and on behalf of the committee. I accordingly received the letter on behalf of and for the consideration of the committee, which is duty-bound to prepare, compose, and present a report on the standing and select committees of the House for your approval. The members of the Committee of Selection were also recalled from recess to consider a purported resignation. And I emphasize the word purported resignation of the honorable member. The committee will soon finalize and present its report to the House for consideration.
You also revealed that arrangements are being made to ensure MPs and parliamentary staff are fully vaccinated. The Speaker observed that so far 109 MPs, 164 management staff and 419 other staff have had their second jabs.
Some of us had the opportunity to take our second dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine a few days ago. This does not in any way give us total immunity against the disease. I am reliably informed that the 2 doses of vaccine provide only 75% immunity. We are accordingly advised to continue to observe the necessary COVID-19 protocols. Whilst at it, the figures from the second doses of vaccines administered indicate that 109 members of Parliament, 164 management staff, and 419 other staff members of Parliament availed themselves for the second dose. Judging from our staff strength and the membership of the House, it is clear that there are more members of Parliament and staff of the Parliamentary Service who are yet to take the second dose. I want to assure you that arrangements are being made for MPs and staff members to complete the dose required in order to be fully vaccinated. Details on that will be communicated when ready.
The note of caution to some deputy minister designates who are going ahead of Parliament and acting in those portfolios. According to Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu, any attempt by the nominees to leave before their time would be at their own peril. This warning comes ahead of their vetting next week. In his welcome address to the House, which has resumed its sittings, the Tamale South MP said the practice of nominees assuming office ahead of their parliamentary approval is not the best democratic practice. He also charged President Akufo-Addo to appoint CEOs and MMDCs, arguing the delay is affecting the effective management of the country.
Mr. Speaker, in respect of deputy minister nominees, may I caution that the ruling in J. Mensah versus Attorney General 1997-98 is still succinct. There are many of them who are in a hurry to assume office, even whilst Parliament have not considered their nomination. May I, Mr. Speaker, serve a warning that in accordance with the ruling in J. Mensah versus Attorney General, they will be in a hurry at their own peril, because they must respect the provisions of the Constitution, which guarantees a shared responsibility between the President as head of the Executive and Parliament in getting them approved. Many of them are already reporting to officers, some even taking actions. In fact, I have requested that some recording will be done for my purposes to expose those who are leaping too early ahead of the parliamentary approval. They may come back hiding that they are learning from their ministers and familiarization. But Mr. Speaker, administrative executive decisions that they take will hold them accountable to it. So, Mr. Speaker, we are concerned about the takeoff of the second term of President Nana Akufo-Addo. He seemed very slow. Many boards and corporations are still not constituted. Yet the success and failures of many of our state and governance institutions hinges on the performance of these boards. Their policy, their administration is contingent on them. It is not for nothing that he must act in earnest in getting those boards and corporations properly constituted. It is not right and appropriate, for instance, for policymakers to be doubling as regulators. Mr. Speaker, our decentralization system has come to a near halt. In many metropolitan municipal districts there are no district chief executives. So one just wonders what goes on at the local level and at the decentralized level.
Now, Majority Leader Osei Sabunsu, in a quick response, absolved the President from any blame and attributed the delay to the absence of a duly constituted vetting committee.
The Speaker, you related to the list of the Minister of State nominee and the Deputy Minister nominees. Speaker, as the Minority Leader has informed, the committee meeting has agreed to commence the vetting of the nominees beginning 2nd June. That then means that if they're able to make the progress that we think they'll be able to make, because we've agreed to vet 4 nominees per sitting, it will enable them to complete the entire list, I guess, before the 16th or 17th of May, of June. Speaker, along the line, we may have to approve of the list that they prepare to us, such that by the close of day on the 18th of June, we would have finished with the consideration of all of them to enable the President to appoint them to office on the 18th of June, barring any unforeseen circumstances. Mr. Speaker, Parliament cannot be stampeded in the vetting process. And so when the Minority Leader alludes to the slowness of the President, these are some of the imperatives. These are some of the imperatives. We've been away. The list came to us some time ago. But Parliament cannot be stampeded. And so the committee that received the reference will have to do their own program and will have to be thorough in the process of consideration of these nominees.
The Swami MP also observed that the Energy and Interior Ministers should be summoned before the House to explain the arrest of the CTFM journalist and the erratic power supply plaguing the country being experienced in recent times.
Mr. Speaker, whilst we were away, there were a few developments, and my colleague and your good self have related to quite a few of them. Speaker, some related to some executive activities to halt the Galamsey operations. Speaker, we also heard and read about the arrest of some journalists. Speaker, we have experienced as a nation some trippages in power supply. Speaker, in respect of these matters, we may require the relevant ministers to come to Parliament to speak to the issues so that we bring clarity to bear on these matters. Because there's been quite some space which is allowing for speculation and people inputting wrong information, which doesn't help our democratic governance.
The NDC Member of Parliament charged with fraud in connection with a land case has been granted bail in the sum of 2 million cedis. The case against the Chifo Ati Mokwa MP David Vondi involves the sale of land to a private company. This was after the AG's office said its investigations revealed Mr. Vondi did not own the land he attempted to sell to the company. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has the rest of the story.
The Chifu Atimokwa MP is accused of collecting $2.4 million between August 2015 and 2016 under the guise of selling a tract of land to a private company. Per the facts of the case, Mr. Vondi reportedly presented himself as a CEO of another private company during the transaction. The land in dispute is located at Frafraha in the Adentan municipality. State prosecutors say investigations revealed that Mr. Von D gave the company lands that did not belong to him and also did not return the huge cash he collected from the company when the company demanded their money back. He has been charged with 2 counts of defrauding by false pretense and money laundering. The MP was called to respond to the charges on Tuesday. He told the court he was not guilty of the charges against him. His lawyers, led by Edigi Tamaklu, urged the court to grant him bail. He explained that the MP has so far cooperated with investigations and is willing to make himself available anytime he's needed by the court. The court handed the state prosecutors 2 weeks to make available to the MP all documents they intend to use against him as evidence. The prosecutors are also to file witness statements to be used as well. Mr. Vondi was meanwhile granted bail in a sum of 2 million cedis. The case has been adjourned to June 30 for case management conference.
The constituency chairman of the opposition National Democratic Congress for Etiwa West, one of the hotspots for galamsey activities, has shut down the government's approach to fighting illegal mining. Johnson Amu says the use of the military to intimidate illegal miners instead of dialoguing with local miners would eventually crash the fight. His concerns come in the wake of the Operation Halt task force striking the area several times and setting fire to excavators and bulldozers belonging to the MPP's women's organizer Kechenfua. Ohiming Teria has more.
Etiwa, a hub for illegal mining operations, has had its share as far as the fight against illegal mining is concerned. 3 residents of Kwabing, the district capital of Etiwa West, were allegedly killed by the Operation Vanguard team in 2017. This development is still fresh in the minds of the people, including NDC constituency chairman Johnson Amon.
When the Operation Vanguard was commissioned in 2017 to fight small-scale mining in Galamsey, Etiwa, we received our share during that time. 3 young men were killed or they were murdered, apparently without any reason. All their issue was, why have they followed a low bed carrying an excavator machine going to be offloaded in a mining site at Kukusu in Etiwa West constituency and in Etiwa district? Why should they lose their life? They were killed and buried or dumped in a pond. People were alleging that it was the military from the Operation Vanguard. However, nobody was arrested. After some few days, they were buried. Now, their families are helpless. Their wives have become widows. Their children have become fatherless.
Members of the military task force, Operation Hot, has struck thrice on the mining sites of MPP's women's organizer, Kate Jamfua at Paming, Labikrum and Dompim. The team burned excavators, bulldozers, washing machines and other heavy mining equipment. The task force returned to the Paming site on Saturday to burn offices and a power plant left behind in previous operations. Mr. Amo says the approach by government will not yield any positive result if force continues to be used. He wants the lands minister to dialogue with miners at local level.
It means that the Operation Vanguard cannot be watching the site 24/7. In the night, people will go to operate, or people will go there to operate. Who catches them? It is a reality in every mining community. We operate day and night. And when you force me to stop working at the daytime, in the night I will go and find my daily bread in the next day. So we are appealing to the State Security Agency. And my special appeal goes to the minister, Jinapo. He's a young man. He should modernize the way we are doing things. He should dialogue with the community. He can come down to the various mining community and engage us. And we'll give him some of the refined ideas that can shape the fight, which all of us will be involved in the fight. When we see that it is the state which is fighting, we leave it to them to fight. If they succeed, they have succeeded.
According to Mr. Amon, the use of force by the military has failed to address the Galamsey menace as many operators continue to work in the night.
Some of us felt that the approach was wrong because you cannot use the military and the police to guide the mining site throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the year. And for that matter, there should have been a concerted effort by having a consultative assembly or meeting where the public would dialogue with the state officials There's no galamsey in Accra. There's no galamsey going on in the Kumasi metropolis. You get it in the outskirts of some of the districts within the Ashanti region, but not the Kumasi metropolis. But when you come to the communities where the mining is done, that is where the engagement must start. Then on the border, this time it is a top-down approach. It is not a bottom-up approach. I prefer a bottom-up approach, whereby you take the views of the people who can help you to win the fight.
From Etiwa in the Eastern region for Joy News, Ministerial reporting.
And it's now time for business. Telecom giant MTN has assured it will significantly improve local shareholding and participation in the business by the close of this year. The chief executive of MTN Ghana, Selim Adadivo, disclosed this at the company's virtual annual general meeting in Accra today. George Rafi has more.
The annual general meeting, even though virtual, managed to bring together a small number of its shareholders to deliberate on how the company fared for last year. Almost all the resolutions tabled secured more than 50% approval from its shareholders. Key among them was increasing the number of directors from 10 to 12 by changing the company's constitution to support this move. In his address, board chairman Ishmael Yamson noted that despite COVID-19, they are hoping to increase the over 6 billion Ghana cedis posted for last year in terms of total revenue by 13 to 15%. Speaking to Joy Business after the annual general meeting, Chief Executive of MTN Ghana, Selim Adadivo, noted that they are not only looking at giving more shares to Ghanaians, but also improving their holding in other areas in the business.
We launched an employee share scheme last year, which represents about 4.41% over and above what we did in the IPO, which was 12.5%. This means currently we have about 16.9% localization within the business, and we expect to achieve an additional 8.1% by the end of the year. Currently, the plans are in development. We have financial advisors that are working with us, and we're in discussions with government on the modalities to achieve the additional 8.1%. We're confident in the process we've put in place, and we're excited about the opportunity that this brings to Ghanaians to own more shares within MTN and Scancom PLC.
He has also been sharing his thoughts on the planned re-registration of SIM cards for this year.
Sure, I think the way to look at it is the spirit behind the re-registration, which is largely to make sure that we can address security concerns and the fraud that currently exists within the marketplace. We're supportive of this, and we're currently working with government to make sure the processes that are put in place in the execution of this also results in a smooth and seamless execution.
Shareholders also give the board the approval for a final dividend payment of 5 pesos. This brings the total amount of dividend to be paid for this year at 8 pesos. MTN Group currently holds about 83% interest in MTN Ghana.
Now, property lawyer and CEO of Comet Properties, Odene Hochermantin, is asking government to set up a $4 billion bullet fund under the National Development Bank for the housing sector. He's also suggesting a digital payment platform to allow people pay their property rates to enable government to raise revenue. He spoke to Odelia Ntiamwa on Brick and Mortar.
Odeno Hochermantin says he failed to list on the Ghana Stock Exchange because at the time of the IPO, the 62 million cedis expected to be raised was not actualized. Speaking to Odelia Ntiamwa on Brick and Mortar on Joy Prime, the property mogul called for a $4 billion bullet fund to close the housing gap. He was quick to add that people's disposable income is currently small, though to make a purchase. He indicated that more than 300 houses sit at his side not being bought.
You go to villages now, most of the farming communities and the roofings are all gone. And these funds are areas that will take it. And then because they are concessional loans, I'm paying about 10% in CD terms for 35 years. And then deposit is 20%. And most of us can own houses. And then the demand will be there for us to deliver, we the developers. In fact, as I sit down, when you go to our site at Brekuso, that is Common Hills, we have a lot of houses under construction, over 350 houses. That there are no purchases. Granted that there are one or two problems, like somebody will complain the roads, which we know the government is going to fix it. Even when we finish, those we finish long time. People didn't have money to buy.
On property tax collection, he said that current payment points do not encourage people to pay. Odinoho Tremanting is asking for a digital payment platform.
Recently, we received a message of our tax liability, which is about 800 cedis. The previous time they were giving me 300, I went and insulted them. That why it is too small.
Oh wow!
So yes, so they brought me 800 cedis.
Okay.
To even know where to pay it was
Now
a big problem.
Issue.
So they knew and they had to go around. For almost 1 month, we were holding the money. Then we received a call from somebody that they knew they should meet him at American Junction, American House Junction, to give him the money. And he came to us and said, nonsense. We want to see the office and pay it.
So that you can be consistent.
Yes, so that we can be consistent.
Well, let's now bring you a summary of international business news. And that's how we end business sports.
And it's time to bring you the second installment of sports here on Joy News Prime. The public relations officer of Accra Great Olympics, Saint Osei, has attributed a class-flying form in the Ghana Premier League to hard work and determination. The other boys are third on the league table, just 3 points behind both Hearts and Kotoko. Saint Osei is not surprised Olympics are title contenders.
What really has happened to Great Olympics has to do with hard work, instilling discipline amongst playing body, and ensuring that the very things that we used to do in the past that was not helping, have to be truncated to ensure that we do the right things to make us, achieve or see what we are seeing at the moment. So if you ask me, this is what I can tell you regarding that.
I see. If you say things that used to happen in the past, I mean, what exactly were the things that were happening in the past that you've run away from?
First of all, let me say, it's always like a system where you have a way of, doing your thing. Then you produce the same thing and then you get a certain result. So then, before we got to this stage, current management, together with the board, decided that, we have a change of the way we do our things, ensuring that things that we used to do in the past, like giving critical attention to, let's say, recruitment, and also putting in certain structures that will ensure that, information and some other things flows positively in line with current standards in football. So it went on, and then we made sure that every person that is part and parcel of the team adhere to. In the past, some of these things were not looked at. In the area of recruitment, the season before this season, we witnessed a lot of players that came in but had hidden injuries. So
hidden injuries,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So going forward, we decided to actually, look into that and make sure that the coach that was going to be at the helm of affairs tries as much as possible to get the quality materials that will help us, and also to ensure that those things that used to happen did not happen.
And that's it for me. Of course, you can read more sports at myjoyonline.com/sports. Easy. Tomorrow is the final of the UEFA Europa League. Manchester United is winning it. Ole is at the wheel.
What makes you so sure that Manchester United is winning?
I've seen it. 2-0.
That's too weak a wager. You must do better than that.
Well, what do you think? How much are you going to place?
1,000 cedis.
1,000 cedis. I'm game.
Okay, we'll finish it up after this.
Definitely.
All right, thank you very much, Hans Mensando. With the sports, we have more stories. Don't go away. Now, Parliament's primary role, apart from making laws, is to provide oversight of the executive arm of government and ensure accountability in all aspects of governance. But President Akufo-Addo himself, a three-time MP, is unconvinced about that role. Addressing the Pan-African Parliament in South Africa, he called on Parliament to build its capacity for effective oversight.
We cannot emphasize enough the role of Parliament in exercising the checks and balances needed on the executive. We cannot emphasize enough the role of Parliament as the voice of the people. And we cannot emphasize enough the role of Parliament in setting the tone of public discourse in the country. It is for the good of our countries that parliaments on the continent develop the capacity to insist on accountability in all aspects of our lives, especially in our governance. For no institution is better suited to do this than the one composed of the representatives of the people. I am a strong believer in the work of Parliament, and as we strive to deepen continental integration and strengthen ties that exist between our respective countries, we should create room for our respective parliaments to learn from each other, and through that process, enhance the prospects of continental integration. It is one of the best ways to realize the objects of Agenda 2063 and help create the Africa we all want for in our time.
Also talked about economic recovery and collaboration between African countries on manufacturing vaccines instead of depending heavily on the West for support.
The success or failure of our modernization will be determined largely by how well we preserve what is good about our culture whilst modifying the aspects that no longer suit our needs. As we dedicate this year to the promotion of Africa's arts, culture, and heritage, against the background of increasing global expression of interest and investments in the sector, which should use the occasion to promote the patenting of Africa's creative designs, to protect intellectual property, folklore, and traditional knowledge, and adopt other measures to protect us against counterfeiting and piracy. The Africa we want may never be realized if we turn our backs on our culture, customs, and heritage. One thing the pandemic of COVID-19 has taught all of us is that we must hasten the process of regional and continental integration, because acting together will boost our capacity to succeed. From our inability to make our own diagnostic tests, to the scramble for vaccines, and to the shocks our respective economies have suffered, resulting in a recession on the continent, it is obvious that we need each other, and more so in combating the COVID-19 pandemic. We must encourage South Africa, Rwanda, Senegal, Ghana, and others to develop the capacity to produce our own vaccines so that we can more effectively deal with future pandemics and not be dependent on foreign supplies and benevolence.
For the bulletin, up next we bring you PM Extract with Evan Smith. I am Israel. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good night.